Whale Sill Hutchison.
Aaron Ryder, Columbus.
Troy Spoor, Oakley.
Emmerich Cross, Kansas City.
Sheila Camus, Commission Admin Support.
Brad Lovelace, Secretary from Topeka.
Mike Miller, Assistant Secretary in Pratt.
Chris Tymason, Legal Counsel.
Okay, this is the time for general public comment on non-agenda items. But before we get started, I want to throw the trial balloon out of starting these meetings back at 1 o'clock. We're getting more and more public comment. At the front part of the meeting, everybody's kind of fired up and everybody's got a lot to say, and I want everybody to have a lot to say. And then as it gets close to evening, if we had an extra half hour, I think it would be a positive thing. We used to have them at 1 o'clock, but we traveled around the state and had such limited participation. We felt that 1:30 would allow us to travel better and take tours, so on and so forth. But I'm beginning to think now that if we started them at 1 o'clock, we'd be able to get more covered in the afternoon. Does any other commissioners have a thought?
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I'm okay either way.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Maybe a couple other procedural changes with the Zoom as we go through.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. What about limiting speech time? We always talked about that at one time.
Yeah, I understand. And there were times that I let my impatience show, and I don't know exactly. We may want to review that. I don't know if I want to do it now. Some we find more interesting than others because it's more on point of what we're dealing with. That's a good point, Troy. Chris, do we have any obligation to give a whole lot of notice to the world if we're going to change start times?
So we've published the notice for April already, and I will be shortly publishing for June. So for April, I've already published that we start at 1:30, but June we could make the change.
I think it'd be good to have the extra half hour in the afternoon again. We're finding a lot of participation, and I want to continue to have the participation. And if we could decompress by 30 minutes, it might be helpful. Okay, having said that, this is the time when we have general public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any people from the public who would like to discuss something that isn't on the agenda?
Commissioner Lauber,
yes.
I have John. He messaged me in the chat. He'd like to make a comment about deer regulations.
Yes.
John, I'm going to unmute you here. So. Are you there, John? Are you there, John? I can. Nope, we can't hear you yet, John. Sorry, I just found your image.
we are going to talk about deer regulations coming up, so maybe that'll give time,
Okay.
the appropriate time for.
Let's do that. And if John gets back and we don't cover the discussion, then we'll have him speak at that time. It's not something we cover. So I suppose, is there any other public comment on non-agenda items?
Mr. Chairman, this is Nadia, Chief of Public Affairs. I think John was able to connect on audio. He's doing it again, but I heard him for just a brief moment. So maybe give him one more moment here.
Okay.
John, do you want to try speaking again? Because I did hear you the last time you just got talked over.
He's going to call in and then chime in later.
Okay. If there's nobody else that has public comment, then I think it's time to turn things over to Levi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Levi Jaster, I'm the Big Game Program Coordinator. I'm in Emporia, Kansas. The first item tonight in the workshop for deer is KR 11525-9A, which sets the seasons and bag limits on our military subunits. Traditionally, we've pushed the military subunit season and bag limits later to be able to adapt to any potential training needs that they have that might need to be taken into consideration. So the first subunit is the Smoky Hill unit, and they're requesting to have deer seasons the same dates. And to match the subunit to the actual deer management unit, unit 4, to allow 5 whitetail deer antlerless only permits. Fort Riley is the next subunit, and they have requested the same seasons as statewide with the following exceptions. They're requesting additional archery days for individuals authorized by Fort Riley. That would include the period of September 1st through September 12th. And then January 1st of 2022 through January 31st of 2022. They would also like to have additional days of hunting opportunity for designated persons, youth, or people with disabilities. And they're requesting that be from October 9th through October 11th. And they're requesting that in place of the pre-rut antlerless whitetail deer season. So it's the same dates as that, but it would be additional opportunity for those designated persons. Same as the normal statewide designated persons. And then they would not have that pre-rut firearm season. And then for firearm season, regular firearm season was on Fort Riley would be November 26th through November 28th, December 18th through December 23rd, and December 26th through December 28th. It's the same number of days as the regular firearms season, just adjusted to those dates. And then they also would want to close and have no extended firearms antlerless hunting in January. And they want to go with only one white-tailed deer antlerless only permit being valid on Fort Riley, which also matches their DMU that they're in. The next subunit is Fort Leavenworth, and they're requesting the same dates as statewide with the following exceptions. The open firearm season at Fort Leavenworth would be November 13th through November 14th, November 20th through November 21st, November 25th through November 28th, and December 4th through December 5th, and December 11th through December 12th. They're requesting that for the extended firearm season for antlerless only white-tailed deer, that it be from January 1st through January 23rd of 2022. And then also to be included in the extended archery season for the taking of antlerless deer, which would then start on January 24th and run through January 31st. And they will utilize up to 5 antlerless only white-tailed deer permits on the Fort Leavenworth subunit 10A. And that concludes the exceptions for the military subunits. And I'll take questions on that if there are any now.
Anybody have any questions for Levi? Okay, go on.
All right, the next big game item in the workshop tonight is KR 115-4-4, which is the regulation for big game legal equipment. And because we've some hunters have had difficulties wearing an orange hat that is required during deer and elk hunters during open firearm season. We are proposing that we add the statement or other garment on the head to go with hat. So the requirement would then be a hat or other garment upon the head with the exterior of not less than 50% of the brightest orange color, an equal portion of which is visible from all directions. It keeps all the same requirements that we had with hat. It just allows some other garment that is that bright orange to be worn for those hunters that should choose or cannot wear an actual hat. And that's the proposed change to legal equipment.
Would a blaze orange hooded sweatshirt with the hood pulled up count?
That's probably a question for Chris. As far as what exactly, I think if it would meet those requirements that are stated, that it's got to be visible from all sides and not less than 50%. But
Right, I think Chris Tymason, I think Levi's assessment is correct if it meets the requirements. It says hat or other garment. If it's the other garment.
Okay, well, we don't need to debate on that. We have a couple of comments that I'm guessing some are related to big game regulations. First of all, Brett Cleveland, do you have something to say on this matter?
Unmute you, Brett. Hopefully. Well, do it that way. Brett, it should be popping up on your screen to unmute, I believe. I'll chat with Britt a little bit and see what's going on. We can go on to John's back on, and this is where his section was going to be.
Go ahead.
John, let me get you unmuted here.
Well, I think I'm on a call line now. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. All right, great. Thanks very much, Commissioner, and the rest of the team there. John Zinnel on behalf of Federal Ammunition here again. I know I've spoken at a couple of these meetings over the last year. And again, I just wanted to take a second and just respectfully request to see if the commission would consider an update to the regulation in regards to the definition of a muzzle loader. I know I've spoken on our platform, the Fire Stick, on the muzzleloader platform several times over the last year. So here to answer any questions that may have been, and I know us as a company and some of the other partners involved have had several other folks reaching out to us that we've directed to the commission to make comments as well. And so again, just wanted to take a minute to find out if that's an opportunity here that we could address that definition and seek a potential change to get that nitro fire and fire stick system in the regulations. So sorry about my technical difficulties earlier.
It's all right. Is Brett on?
Let me try different. Do this real quick. Not seeing. She's not going off of mute. Let me try one more thing here.
Can you hear? Can you?
Oh,
hear
there we
now?
go. Yep.
Okay, my name's Brett Cleveland. I talked to most of you guys here a while back about air rifles. I've been talking to Lauren here recently and trying to present my case. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a lifetime hunter in Kansas. And back when I was younger, I used to hunt on my dad's place, and the closest house was a couple miles away. Therefore, after years pass, I get houses closer. And now the closest house is within a quarter of a mile away, and it kind of makes me nervous shooting high power rifles. So I was trying to legalize this to go with air rifle. There's 20 states in the union already is doing this. Some states are recommending 30 caliber, some states are recommending 40 caliber and above. I personally kind of leaning towards the 40 caliber being an ethical shot. And with the gun situations going on here in the United States, the banning of guns, then if they take our guns away, then what are we going to be using to hunt with for big game?
Okay.
I know that it's the funding on all this is the reason why you guys don't want to do it. And I also would like to see airboats being used for handicap. I know you all probably don't know a whole lot about this stuff, but there are equipment out there in air instead of powder to take an ethical shot. I am a hunter ed instructor. I just did a course this weekend at El Dorado. We certified another 38 students.
Well, thank you for your efforts there. We had a discussion a little bit this afternoon about air guns. We've had a discussion briefly about air bows. We've had a discussion briefly about the fire stick. From a personal perspective, I think the gap, the distance between air rifles and air bows and conventional firearms is pretty great. It's quite a leap to bring the two together.
And that's the reason I'm more after the air rifles than the high power rifles, is because you don't have a bullet going 5 miles.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And what I'm wanting to do is kind of get back to have a discussion on the fire stick that I believe is a more logical outgrowth of existing muzzleloader recommendations. The staff that Levi met with, their analysis, and Levi, I'm going to paraphrase, is that we think it is safe and effective, but we're ambivalent as to whether to recommend it or not. We don't see a problem with it, but it's not something we're going to recommend. Is that basically your feeling?
Levi Jastroporia, yeah, the staff recommendation was that we didn't find a biological reason to support or oppose the Fire Stick.
Now, there isn't a biological reason, I don't think. I think it has to do with equipment. And I understand the concept of fair chase. Remember, the older I get, the fairer the chase seems to be. At one point in time, people would probably say that high-powered binoculars were not as fair chase. I've got people contacting me who fish, claiming that the new graphs and technological equipment in fishing is too high tech and we need to back up. We've kind of taken an approach on that we just aren't going to try to regulate it. Not that I do not own, nor I'm not sure I will own a Fire Stick compatible rifle. I just would like to see this get off dead center one way or the other. And if we want to ask General Counsel to make it as an addendum to be voted on at a subsequent meeting, I'd like to go on record. If the bulk of the commission says, no, we just don't agree with that, we don't want to do it, it may not even get a motion made. But I think we should vote one way or the other, because there have been arguments for and against. The opponents have had heartfelt arguments. I'm not sure I've been persuaded that it's a whole lot different than some of the other muzzleloader applications and technology that's available. And then that comes back to the fact, well, no, it probably isn't, because the original muzzleloader season was supposed to be hyper primitive and the inlines have changed all that. Well, we're not going to be able to put that genie back in the bottle. And there used to be a little thing about this, the size of starburst that you would stick in your gun, and you would have a 209 primer stuck in it to make it easier to load the primer, so on and so forth. We're going to be fighting the battle of technology for a long time. I personally don't think that the Fire Stick changes the complexion of current day muzzleloading all that much, and adds some advantages. It's still basically a one-shot hunt that this allows it to be unloaded. The comment was made previously that there has been a lot of support by people involved in the production, and that's true. We got crossbows because a person who, the first time I was introduced to crossbows, it was by somebody who had a vested interest in crossbow promotion. And it isn't, I see everybody's point. And I guess what I'd like to do, I'd just like to vote, because all of us have our minds made up on this in our heart, probably. And if there's just not very much enthusiasm, let's deal with it rather than have it come up at every meeting. That's my 2 cents worth. I'm ultimately going to ask for somebody to make a motion that this be included as a amendment to be voted on at a subsequent meeting if Councillor Tymason thinks that is parliamentarily correct. And I'm not going to fall on my sword and throw a big fit if the motion doesn't get made, because I don't really know how the rest of you feel. And based on Kansas open meeting laws, I'm not supposed to know how you feel about it. So my 2 cents worth is that I'd like for somebody to make a motion to get this on the table.
Chairman?
Yes.
Well, you know, I've listened to this before, and I've also read up on the fire stick. I started muzzleloader hunting, well, 20, whatever they started when it was legal. And I bought a Hawkins 50 caliber that loaded through the muzzle, and I had a lot of fun with it. But then I also have shot the other ones, and I can't see that the fire stick, I think you made that point a while ago, that fire stick, not a great deal difference in what we've got already. You know, now it's amazing what the progress has been. But having said that, I also think that it's a product that's made, and I think it'll be proven a pretty good product. So I would like to make the motion that we put it on the agenda or have the discussion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Spore, I'd second that.
Okay. Now, this is where I don't know about parliamentary procedure. All we're wanting to do, Chris, is to have some formal thought as to whether or not it comes before the meeting for a final vote. We're not voting on the fire stick tonight, but I wanted to get some level of interest as to whether or not we can have it as a possible amendment. So do I need to have a voice vote, or is that not permissible?
Chris Tymason, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to suggest that there's enough interest there that I'll prepare an amendment. I've already turned in the regulations to be processed to be able to vote in June. And there's a legal standard that has to be met when it comes to an amendment. It has to be a logical outgrowth of the discussion, and people have to be put on notice. So I think that based on what I've seen, I'll prepare an amendment and you guys can vote on an amendment in June.
Well, that's all I wanted tonight. And that does not detract from some of the valid points made by opposition to this. And there will be some opposition, and I respect that. All I wanted to do is to have it on for an up or down vote at a subsequent meeting. And that's all I was wanting tonight. And if you think we have enough to put it on as an amendment, then we'll go forward. And this particular motion and second will just sort of wither out there and die, I guess. If you believe that I'm within the bounds of Robert's Rule of Order to suggest to be a future amendment, then we'll just leave it at that.
I think we're okay, and I'll prepare an amendment for the regulation for June.
Okay. Do you have any comments on that at all, Levi?
Levi Jaster Emporia, no, sir.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the commission at this time, even though I realize we're not voting tonight? Well, hearing none, are you done with your presentation, Levi?
Levi Jaster Emporia, yeah, that wraps up my workshop items.
All right, well then we're going to move on to public hearing. I had another item that I wanted to bring up. I got a letter from some gentleman the other day regarding e-bicycles. And he's trying to figure out whether or not he can take his e-bicycle and electronic assist, as he carefully points out, and pull his little deer cart back with it. I think he's got a good point, but I don't know what the answer is. this is one of those situations to where in the future, this is the type of thing that we'd want the group Nadia discussed to render that opinion, because what I might tell him may be different than what, Warren or Emmerich might tell him. I really don't have a clue. So is there any way that we can in some way get that clarified or respond to him? Or is it one of those gray areas that's non-clarifiable?
Mr. Chairman, Chris Tymeson, is Stewart on? I don't know if I see him or not. I discussed the issue with Stewart today. It is not legal so I read that letter, and the gentleman's correct. He got the correct information that it's not legal for him to use the e-bike in the fashion that he desires. And the bottom end of the letter had a request for the commission and the department to consider allowing that conduct to occur, to be able to use his e-bike in the same way that he can use a pedal bike.
Okay.
Are pedal bikes allowed on wildlife management areas? Because there's several places when I tried to find it today, it indicated foot traffic only.
If there are if it's a posted notice situation, then it wouldn't be allowed. But I believe it's my assessment, and when I talked with Stewart this morning, pedal bikes are allowed to be used on the wildlife area to get to and from your stand or whatever you're using.
What was the inconsistency the gentleman was pointing out?
The way our regulation is drafted, it prohibits motorized vehicles, which includes electric or battery-powered two-wheeled vehicles.
Lauren Sill, does the bill that's going through the legislature right now, how will that impact this?
The bill that's going through the legislature would have no impact, and I don't think those bills are going to make it through, but it would have no impact on us.
Okay.
And somebody has or will contact that gentleman.
Well, yes. He knows the answer. It's not legal. He's asking the commission and the department. He's making a request to the commission and the department. And I think my suggestion would be that if the commission wants the department to explore that, then we can have a discussion and come back with an answer to you as to whether or not to recommend to change the regulation.
I don't know.
This is Commissioner Spore. So they can ride pedal assist bike on parks, on state park property, but they can't. I guess tell us what the regulation says today. Where can they ride it and where can't they ride it?
Chris Tymeson, we authorize use in the parks. We did not authorize the use for the wildlife areas. And currently the regulation prohibits the use of, it would be an e-bike off-road on a wildlife area. Whereas a pedal power only bike would be allowed.
I'm not sure I care that much one way or the other. I just don't know whether there would be deleterious issues down the road with it or not. Yes, Lauren.
One of the things is I was trying to research and prepare today. Some of these e-bikes have a pedal assist. So you've got the bike, you've got a cart attached, you walk beside the bike, push the throttle, and it takes it along. So it's basically a motorized deer removal device or duck decoy carrying device. when we're looking at all the issues that we're having with public land, all this will do is increase pressure. I'll be honest. This is something that would help me because I hunt mostly, oftentimes, not mostly, but oftentimes by myself. And how far I go on to state land is determined by whether or not I can get the deer off. And right now I have to cut a deer in half in order to get it out and make 2 trips because I'm not strong enough to do it by myself. So it would enable me to access more, but so that does with more and more people, getting them farther in. And what you're doing is you're going to reduce those places where people who are willing to do the work to get in and hunt, to try to seek those places that there's a little less pressure, there's a little less solitude, and they're willing to work for it. You're going to take those places away because it will open it up to anybody that's got enough money to buy the right bike can get anywhere. And so when we're looking at the pressure on our public lands, it applies not just to deer hunting, it applies to waterfowl stuff too. When you're going around waterfowl areas, not through the water, but other places, it's going to increase some of that as well.
That's a good point, Lauren. Does anybody particularly want to move forward with it or just leave it the way it is for now?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mike Miller, Assistant Secretary in Pratt. I'd be glad to talk to Stuart. Stuart and I visited a little bit today. If he would visit with his staff, and then if he talks about the reference document at the next meeting, he could certainly address this as to how staff feels about this. I think the biggest difference is on parks. Linda, correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're restricted to trails and roads, maintained roads in state parks. They're not allowed off those maintained trails or roads.
That's correct.
And that is a good point. So, and that may be the difference. Anyway, Brad.
Yeah, thank you, Brad Lovelace, Secretary. Thanks, Mr. Chairman Lawver. I don't have a lot of data on this, but recently we did a survey up at Milford, pretty extensive survey that Fort Hayes did for us. And one of the significant bits of feedback that we got that was expressed numerous times was Milford's a large area. They have some big tracts of land and the question was really about access, the road access that we provided into these areas. I was surprised at the number of our customers who said, I really appreciate having some areas that are harder to get to. Those make for a unique experience. And numerous folks said they really value that and they're willing to travel to places to have those kind of out of the way experiences. So that was an interesting comment that might be of value to you. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments from the commission on this matter? Well, Levi, I think we're back to you.
Gerald, we have a public comment for that with their hand raised for that.
Yes.
Marshall, I'm going to unmute you here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Marshall Loftus. I'll just echo what Secretary Lovelace said. You know, I have an appreciation for those areas that are, you know, further from the road, and I work hard to get to those areas that are further from the road. And I enjoy the solace that I can get back in those places, you know, where I can relax after a hard week at work. The other thing I'd like to point out is, you know, an e-bike, those come in many different forms. I recently watched a YouTube video of one that was literally beating dirt bikes in a race. I mean, so to compare them just to a regular bicycle anymore with the technology, I mean, they're just not bicycles. That's just plain and simple in my mind. So I just wanted to make that point. You know, if you get a chance, you might just check out a couple of YouTube videos regarding some of the newer, higher tech e-bikes that are built for backcountry riding.
Okay, thank you. All right, Levi.
All right, the Levi Jasper Emporia, Kansas. The first item up tonight is KR 115-1-1, which is our definitions. Because we implemented our e-tag and our app where you can hold your license or purchase your license through that, we have to clean up some language to allow someone potentially, with that app, you can have multiple accounts. But our current regulations don't allow anyone to carry someone else's license. So someone with the app could not necessarily hold their spouse's license there, the item then, the definition is to change the meaning of transfer, which is number 63 under 1-1. And we are proposing to strike item C there, that is to carry another individual's license, permit, or other issue of the department when that individual is not present. Just because if you have, if you've logged in somebody's account on the app, technically you could be carrying that when they're not present. So we are proposing to strike that item from 115-1-1.
Okay. Any questions for Levi on that?
Does that only, Commissioner Sill, I'm sorry, does that only apply to the e-licenses? Or what about when you've still got paper carcass tags and things?
Levi Jasper Emporia, because it's not specific to e-tags, I would say that you could hold somebody else's license for them, but that's a better question probably for Chris.
Chris Tymason, it's applicable to all. The change is applicable to all.
I apologize for not thinking of it before, but does that not present, I understand why with the e-license stuff, you've got it on one phone, but does that not present some potential problems for party hunting with other people's tags?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think the risk of party hunting probably takes place one way or the other. I don't know if it makes it any easier or any worse. It's just sometimes it'd be handy for the information to be on one's cell phone, not realizing I was potentially breaking the law. When I used to go hunting with my daughter, I had her license in my pocket along with me and her hunter's safety card. So I don't know whether I'm supposed to do that or not. And to answer your question, Lauren, I don't know. Is there any other questions or comments on this? I didn't answer your question, Lauren, but I don't know what else to do. Levi, move on to deer management units.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Tymason.
Yes.
We need to vote on 115-1-1.
Haven't had public hearing in a while. I'd like a motion that we approve KAR 115-1-1 as presented.
Commissioner Ryder, I so move.
Can I have a second?
I'll second Commissioner Gefeller.
Is there any discussion from the commission? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, will you call the roll call, Sheila?
Commissioner Sporer,
Yes.
Commissioner Sill,
Yes.
Commissioner Ryder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gefeller,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lauber,
Yes.
pass 7-0.
Levi, go to deer management units.
All right, Levi Jester Emporia, Kansas. 115 4-6 is our deer management units. We needed to clean up some of the language where some road names designations have changed over time. And so I have a quick summary if I can share the screen. So if you can see that, we would change for the boundaries for units, for deer management units 5 and 17. Currently, the regulation has Federal Highway US 156, and that designation has changed to State Highway 156. And then the DMU 10 and 11, State Highway 1 K150 is what's currently in there, and that has changed to Johnson County 135th Street. And then on DMU 19, South Topeka Boulevard is what is in there currently, and it has changed to South Topeka Avenue. And then the last change is the corner up in kind of the northeast corner of Management Unit 19. Currently, it says Federal Highway US 73 to the Kansas-Missouri state line, except that US Highway 73 doesn't actually meet the Kansas-Missouri state line. So we needed to change that to Federal Highway US 73 to State Highway K92, and then K92 goes over to the state line. So that's a summary of the changes to clean up some of those name changes and to make that one unit a complete polygon.
Any questions for Levi? Can I have a motion for approval?
Commissioner Hazlett, I move that we approve.
Commissioner Gefeller, I second.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the public or commission? Sheila?
Commissioner Sporer,
Yes.
Commissioner Sill,
Yes.
Commissioner Ryder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gefeller,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lauber,
Yes.
pass 7-0.
Okay, Levi, it's your show again.
Levi Jester Emporia. Yes, the next item is 115-25-9, which is the open season and bag limits for the statewide seasons. So to start, the proposed dates are for archery is to be September 13th through December 31st. The urban antlerless only whitetail deer archery season will begin on January 24th of 2022 and extend through January 31st of 2022. The regular firearm season would be December 1st, 2021 through December 12th, 2021. Also, the pre-rut whitetail antlerless only firearm season would be October 9th through October 11th. The muzzleloader season would be September 13th through September 26th. The season for designated persons would be September 4th through September 12th. We are also proposing to change the age limit for youth participants to go from currently it's any person 16 years of age or younger. And this would change to any person 17 years of age or younger. And then the extended firearm season for deer management units 6, 8, 9, 10, or 17 would be during January 1st, 2022 through January 9th, 2022. And then the extended season in units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 11, 14, and 16 would be January 1st, 2022 through January 16th, 2022. And then the longest season in January for the extended for units for the Fort Leavenworth unit at 10A. And then regular units 12, 13, 15, and 19 shall be January 21st, 2022 through January 23rd, 2022. And we would allow up to 5 antlerless whitetail deer permits to be used in units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10A, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 19 on lands not managed by the department. And so the only thing that is different than what we've traditionally done the last couple years is that we are changing that age up to add a year to youth hunters. Otherwise, everything's the same as we did this last year while adapting to the calendar. And those are the proposed seasons for this, the 2021 to 22 season.
Commissioner Ryder, Levi, I've been receiving some feedback and pushback to the expansion of the antlerless only time frame. You know, we used to have maybe 2 days, 2 or 3 days, and now it seems, and now I think
Gerald may have been kicked off again.
Shortest time is maybe what, 9 days or so, and then 16, and then 23 days. Do you have any response to that?
I asked, and it's the typical Levi Jasper Emporia. It's the typical asking hunters whether they want to hunt or not, I guess. But we did ask during the harvest survey a couple years ago for input on those January seasons, and generally most were in favor of longer seasons to gain a little bit. There was quite a bit of complaint about having only those 1 or 2 day January seasons in many places.
Are you, Commissioner Ryder again, are you concerned with antlered deer already dropping their antlers and those deer being taken during this time period?
So I looked at our Levi Jasper Emporia. I looked at our harvest data for those deer, and in the entire season, a typical year, we kill between 800 and 900 of those deer across the entire state. And looking at the timing of that harvest, only about 225 of those deer on average are killed in January, actually. And so looking at how that, you know, what that would save per antlered deer if that deer survived to the next season, in most units, you're talking, you know, that's 1 antlered deer over at least 100 to 200 square miles, depending on, looking at our population densities and stuff. So, we could do more for that if we could reduce deer vehicle accidents on those kind of deer, I think, than we would necessarily with harvest.
So you don't see that, Commissioner Ryder, again, you don't see that as impactful by any scope, really?
Levi Jasper Emporia, no, I don't. What tends to happen is that hunters that really care about that take the extra time to make sure that they aren't shooting one of those deer. Whereas other hunters, they would have shot that deer during regular season because they want to just harvest a deer and they're not particular about what deer they are harvesting. Not to say that some people don't make a mistake here and there if they didn't intend to harvest one of those, but I don't know that that's, 200 deer across the entire state of Kansas isn't going to make or break our buck management.
Levi, Commissioner Spore here. There's constituents up in northwest Kansas, up on that Nebraska line in Rollins County that are calling, saying they don't have enough whitetail anymore, and we shouldn't be participating in that January doe season. What's your take on that thought in that region?
So Levi Jasper Emporia, most people are more familiar with, the location they hunt, and deer are not evenly spread across the landscape. I mean, we know that. And so if someone feels that on their property that, or in their area that they need to not take more, we're not forcing them to go hunt. And in reality, we've got a research project going on up in that part of the state, and it's not our adult doe survival that's hurting us up there. Adult does survive very well in that part of the state. It also, a little bit of additional harvest in January like that also helps us on our goals with trying to manage deer with CWD. That is a good time to help reduce that, and I think we are going to see a more drastic change due to that than we could with this January harvest. So.
Thank you.
Is Gerald not back?
He was for a minute.
He was for a minute. I just lost him again.
All right.
Can we call,
Well, can
one
we-
of you call for a motion, or?
Yep. So we have a proposal by Levi. Does anybody want to make that motion?
Before we do we have another item we'll vote on? Do we want to deal with that first, then come back when the chairman's here?
Yeah. That's a good idea. I think that's a great suggestion if you guys are comfortable rolling along to the next item. Let's see.
All right.
Secretary's
Levi,
orders then?
Yep. Levi Jasper Emporia. So this is not anything that has to be voted on. But I'm going to take this time to go through the secretary's orders and the changes we are implementing through that with the permit quotas. So for resident deer permit quotas, the only big changes are our mule deer firearms, either sex, either species, the any deer permit. And so mule deer hunting is done by zones for residents. There's an eastern and a western zone. The western zone is made up of units 1, 2, 17, and 18, basically the far west part of the state. And for that zone, the permit quota is 1397, which is a decline of 28 permits in that zone. And then the eastern zone, which is units 3, 4, 5, 7, and 16. The mule deer range has been retracting westward. And so in that zone, there's many fewer tags available. And so this year, the quota is 91, which is a decline of 9 permits overall. There is no change as far as the antlerless deer permits valid in each unit. The only unit that does not have any permits valid again is unit 18. And so that would then take us to the non-resident permits per unit. And so for this upcoming season, unit 1 up in the northwest corner of Kansas, 764 permits are allocated there, which is a decline of 69 overall. And then 47 mule deer stamps are available, which is the decline of 3. And then the Smoky Hill unit, which is northwest Kansas, just below unit 1. The permit allocation is 442, which is 11 down from the previous year. And there are 36 mule deer stamps available in that unit, which is a decline of 4. Unit 3, which is just to the east of unit 1, there are 978 permits allocated there, which is a decline of 15. And there are 7 mule deer stamps available in unit 3, which is a decline of 1. The unit 4, which is south of 3 and west of 2, there are 534 permits allocated there, and that's 12 less than last year. There's only 1 mule deer stamp, which is no change. Unit 5, which is kind of the west central part of Kansas, there are 712 permits allocated there, which is down 4. 1 mule deer stamp, which is no change. Unit 6, which is central Kansas, there's 526 permits allocated there, which is a decline of 4. Unit 7, north central Kansas, there's 1,672, which is a decline of 15. And there are no mule deer stamps allocated for 7, which is a decline of 1 from last year. Unit 16, south central Kansas, Unit 8, which is north central, there are 1,957, which is up 31 from last year. The unit 9, there are 986, which is no change from last year. Unit 10, which is northeast Kansas, there's 1,262, which is an increase of 57. Unit 11, there's 3,296 permits allocated, which is up 30, which is for southeast Kansas. Unit 12, there's 2,215, which is an increase of 25. Unit 13 has 595 permits, which is down 91. Unit 14 has 1,924, which is an increase of 26. Unit 15 has 1,456 permits allocated, which is an increase of 49. And Unit 16 has 1,840, which is an increase of 10. No mule deer stamps allocated in Unit 16, which is no change from last year. Unit 17 has 621 permits, up 11 from the previous year. And there are 54 mule deer stamps available in 17, which is an increase of 4. And then Unit 18 has 246 permits allocated, which is 5 from a gain of 5 from last year. And 20 mule deer stamps allocated there, which is no change. Some of the changes have been implemented or in permit numbers were due to concerns about populations as far as our buck harvest, which is the hunting is the most significant form of mortality for adult male deer. And then also to adjust to the where demand is from hunters as far as where they're applying, where we can adjust as we can. Overall, we've increased this total number of non-resident permits increased by 23 this year. And that is the changes with Secretary's orders.
Levi, Commissioner Sill, I have a question. When a non-resident applies, say they apply for 16 as their first choice, do they get a second choice then?
They get one additional unit, yes.
No, choices.
Oh, choices. Yes.
How they can get a first, second, third choice.
Levi Jaster Emporia, during the draw, their application, they can have up to 4 different choices.
Okay, so if somebody wants to, Commissioner Sill, so if somebody wants to hunt in 16, they put 16 as their first choice, 15 as their second, and 17 as their third, and 5 as their fourth. They're going to get to hunt in Unit 16, right?
If they draw.
Okay, so when they got,
it's all based on the odds of that first unit, but yes. And most units do have one unit that was, had fewer first choice applicants than permits were allocated. But a hunter might not get to hunt if their choices are already full.
Commissioner Sill, but if they have 4 choices and every choice they're picking is either that unit they want to hunt or adjacent to it, then the chances are that they're going to, when we have a 90%, greater than 90% success rate, the chances are that one of those 4 is going to draw for them. Isn't that pretty high likelihood?
It is. Our overall draw rate is, in the low to mid 90s right now. So, yes, they have a good chance of drawing here.
Okay. So in reality, I'm just picking on 16 because I did the numbers on it. That's all. So while 16 has 1,840 permits, the total number of hunters that could hunt there is 3,629 potentially, correct?
Potentially in the extreme case. There's going to be some that, went with 16, even though they're going to a different unit too.
Okay.
So there is some movement back and forth. I am currently working on evaluating our old harvest data to try and determine how much of that, how much use there is of adjacent units, just to see, how much back and forth there is, because, the assumption would be that there's some either way to balance a little bit, but I don't necessarily know if there's, greater in one direction commonly.
So I guess I'm just expressing my concerns as a commissioner for some of the deer hunters. Because when I looked at your harvest report, the 1920 harvest report, compared to the 1819, the buck harvest in 16 dropped by 220 by residents. There were 220 fewer residents that harvested bucks, and yet we're increasing non-resident permits. That same year, 60% of the bucks harvested in 16 were taken by non-residents. In units 1, 12, and 7, it's in a 40 to 50% range of the non-resident buck harvest compared to the residents. And I guess to me, that just raises some red flags, and yet we continue to increase permit numbers.
Levi, Jasper, and Poria. We did have an increase this year, but we did a few years back pull a lot of permits from that unit specifically and shuffled them around to other units so that we held to our meet demand mandate through the legislature. That's in statute as one of the items that we have to take into account in our allocating permits. And so the way it is arranged now, we've got many things that go into permit allocations, but a major one is population and previous harvest, along with that demand desire. So some of the changes now are just trying to adjust to where there is demand, yet our population says it is okay to handle this, but like a lot of those changes that are declines up in the Northwest, that's because of changes in population that we're trying to address. So but I don't know that I don't take into account the proportion of harvest of each sex by residency.
I understand, and that part's not the impact of non-resident permits on resident hunters isn't even part of that formula in statute. There's a comment of general public, input, but the non-resident demand, landowner demand, those factors are all important in that formula, but the impact that it has on resident hunters is not important, and it's not included. And we're paying a price for it. They're not going anymore.
Jason, to interrupt, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Gerald.
All right, well, go ahead, Lauren. My battery's going off and on, and I just wanted to make sure I was on. Lauren, finish what you were saying.
I'm done, sir. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Levi?
Levi, this is Commissioner Sporer. I'm just fielding comments from lots of deer hunters, and some of them are in that Nemascau Valley between Pratt and Kingman and then Northwest Kansas. And just heard a lot of comments about Kansas has got such a long deer season the way it is. If you can't kill a deer during the regular deer season, between the early doe and the regular firearm, what they're saying is they don't think there's a need for that January doe season. And I guess I'm struggling with that, but do you have a comment on that?
Levi, Jasper, and Poirier. Well, if you're the landowner that, deer are, causing crop damage, this is a good thing for you to have more. And deer hunters are really good at self-regulating as far as if they don't think that they should be harvesting deer, even if there's a case that to be made that they should be, they don't. So potentially it also, we've gotten some pushback from landowners that say that, because they're harvesting crops, they can't hunt during a lot of the regular season. So they really appreciate having that January season to go out to. It's also been one of our key defenses to transferable permits that we offer so much, so long a season, and that we give them many options for control if that's the problem. So I think it's a good tool, but it's we're not actually forcing anyone to go out and hunt if they think it's not good in their area. Deer management is a cooperation and collaboration between the department and our hunters and landowners. I cannot work with each individual property like the landowners and hunters can. And so we work to set goals by the DMUs for that broad area, but then that allows flexibility under that to, with your own specific property.
Yep. Yep.
Levi.
Yeah, Chairman Lawver.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Brad Lovelace, Secretary. Yeah, I think Commissioner Sporer, I think Levi's point is a good one. We really try to tailor this to the different areas of the state. I know I've been talking with several legislators just in the last couple of weeks from Southeast Kansas, and they really are complaining about deer damage and are using a lot of depredation tags, but then also appreciate the length of the season that they can have people. Some of them want to have folks come in and non-residents and an antlered buck in the regular season, but then appreciate that January season to really try to control the herd by taking does. And I know up in this part of the state where I'm at, concern over vehicle accidents is a big one. And so Levi's extended this season to try to increase that harvest and reduce. So it seems like it's pretty well tailored, but do I hear you saying that your friends in that Ninneskah Valley are saying that they think that there's overharvest going on?
I think their comments are is they just don't feel like they have the deer herd that they've had in the past. And it's just a group of landowners that live along that Highway 50 corridor that are just concerned that they're not seeing the deer and I don't think anybody can argue this, that, everybody will tell you that there's not the deer there was, 10 years ago or so. And then the other concern is chronic wasting disease in Northwest Kansas, and particularly up in that Rawlins County area along the Sapa. They're very concerned that they don't have the deer populations to withstand a January doe season. And I guess, in consolation to it, if Levi kind of tells me that, he'll look at that a little bit harder next year, I'm probably good with voting yes on his recommendations.
Levi, Jaster, and Poria, absolutely. I'm always looking at that and looking at it, hard every year. One other item I'll bring up too, that we're going to be, as a department looking at, addressing, is we are wrapping up a research project out there in Western Kansas. And what we're finding is that where we're suffering is a lack of fawn habitat and low fawn survival. And so even if we reduced our doe harvest, we're unlikely to even be able to increase our deer population up in there because doe harvest was already very high. And if we can't get fawns to survive because there's no habitat for them, putting more on the landscape isn't going to help us. We've got to have that habitat on the ground. And so we're looking at that, and right now the results are still preliminary, but as this wraps up, we're going to be looking at, some habitat recommendations that should, would help with this. And we'll be looking at ways to get that, those recommendations implemented on the ground too. So that's that's a big thing that, we've identified with this project, that research is that, we've got to do something with our fawn habitat to increase our fawn survival, because having more, if they don't survive, doesn't help us.
Okay, this is Chairman Lauber. In my attempt to try to get back on after my iPad died, did we vote on 25-9?
No, we did not.
Okay. All right. Are there other questions regarding 25-9 or the Secretary's orders? I remember a few years ago, we tried to cut back the number because we didn't think it was necessary in certain areas of the January season, and the KLA was not very happy with us. We only gave them 1 day. That's ridiculous. So there is a little bit of politics involved, trying to give the people that think we have too many deer and control a lot of habitat to have that extra season, even though it doesn't make a lot of difference. All right, can I have a motion that we approve KAR 115-25-9?
Commissioner Keller, I move.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Hazlett, I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion, commission or public? All right, Sheila.
Commissioner Sporer,
Yes.
Commissioner Sill,
Yes.
Commissioner Ryder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gefeller,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lauber.
Yes.
Pass
Okay.
7-0.
All right. Secretary Lovelace, do you have any items here?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Lauber. Our counselor, Chris Tymeson, notified me that in the Senate, on the Senate floor tonight, they did pass forward our bill to purchase that land, that 493 acres associated with Byron Walker Wildlife Area in Kingman. So that's really good news. It's been hard work. That means is now it goes to the House or the conference committee. So the fight's not over, but we made a significant step in getting it out of the Senate, a really big step. So we're glad for that and appreciate all the hard work that everybody's done on our staff, Public Lands, and Ducks Unlimited, our great partner out there, to preserve this this opportunity for us. I'll note, just to make sure everybody understands the picture, Ducks Unlimited purchased this in 2017. So it's taken this many years for us to work it through the legislature with the conditions now in place that if we buy more than a quarter section almost anywhere in Kansas, we have to get their approval. It can really stretch things out, and we've found that out the hard way in the last few years. So while we hear loud and clear that we need more public lands, not less, there is definitely it's an uphill battle when we try to move that through the legislature, even when it's perfectly situated and is well managed in terms of all the logistics of the deal, like has happened with public lands and Ducks Unlimited in this case. It's still very difficult to do. So it's a painstaking process. We'll celebrate tonight and go back to the battle tomorrow to try to get it through the House and on to complete approval. So, but it's good news for tonight. So we're thankful for that.
Thank you, Brad. Is there any other business that we need to discuss tonight? Chris, is there something we need to cover?
Mr. Chairman, Chris Tymeson, we need to set the next couple meetings beyond. So we have June set on the 17th, but we don't have a location. Is that correct, Sheila?
I have Great Plains Nature Center in Wichita for June.
Okay. June 17th. So we need to set August. And Mike Miller, if you would refresh my memory on, does it need to be early or late in the month? Or does it
We
matter
have the
anymore?
5th. We set the 5th the last time.
Okay.
We just didn't set a location.
Early's better for Nadia's crew to get the hunting regs to press and get them distributed on time. The earlier the better for the August meeting.
So
If we have the one meeting in June in Wichita, do we want to look at, say, Kansas City in August, somewhere in the Johnson, Wyandotte County area?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, well, I understand. We can have Sheila look at what's available. I think our April meeting, we still need to have a virtual meeting. Our president says that maybe we can meet with small groups in July, and it may be different in June, but I still think we need to be cautious. I don't know what phase the state's going to be in and what the governor's expectations are going to be for the end of April. So I think we take it one meeting at a time, but I would have the next one totally virtual.
I think this Secretary Levis, I think that's wise, Chairman Lauber.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Tymason again. Could we go ahead and set September and November? Also, I'm going to suggest September 23rd. And then November 18th. And the 18th would be up in the Northwest. Sheila, do you have a possibility for the 23rd of September?
I have not had any suggestions made to me, but if we're canceling April 29th, that was that Beloit meeting we were supposed to tour Ringneck Ranch. Is September a bad time for him, though? Mike, what do you think? Would September be bad?
Yeah, Mike Miller, Assistant Secretary. I think Keith will be disappointed if we don't reschedule.
Okay.
September would probably work. I think they really don't get very busy until October, but I will make contact with Keith and see if a September 23rd would work, because he really wants the commission to come out and see the operation and see the hatchery that he works with there. He'll be disappointed. I know he was holding out hope that we would have an in-person meeting in April, but he'll understand. But if we could reschedule that tentatively for Beloit in September, I think that'd be a good thing.
Okay, that's what we'll look at. Unless that doesn't work out for Keith, then we'll change that.
All right.
November 18th.
Do we need to set a location for November, or do we just wait as the summer goes on?
Well, the turkey hunt is where? The pheasant hunt. I'm sorry, pheasant hunt.
It'll be in Colby.
In Colby.
It'll be in Colby, but we had
So
tried
we
to
either
do
want
it.
Colby or Oakley or Goodland
Yeah,
or something.
we tried to do Oakley, so let's see if we can't set Oakley again for November.
That's good.
Can I have those August and November dates again?
We have, I'll just read them all to you, don't mind. April 29th now is virtual. June 17th in Wichita at the Great Plains Nature Center. August 5th is in the Kansas City, Johnson, Wyandotte County area. September 23rd now in Beloit with a tour of Ringneck Ranch. And November 18th in Oakley.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other business besides those dates that need to come before the group? Our meeting in June starts at 1 o'clock. Well, I want to thank everybody. I apologize that I had some iPad trouble, but it worked out fine, and the meeting was productive. So thanks for all your thoughts and comments. If nobody has anything, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
See y'all.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Bye.